The following is a fan-made audiobook. I do not own any rights to My Hero Academia, My Hero Academia school briefs, or any other media referenced. This video series will in no way be monetized for personal gain. Please support the official release. My Hero Academia, School Briefs, Volume 4, Part 2, Prep. Kai Chisaki and the Hasai group had plotted to use the quirk-killing drug produced by Iri to rise to power, but their scheme had ended in failure when the hero team successfully stormed the Yakuza compound and rescued the girl. This had come at a high price, however. Chisaki had killed Sir Night-Eye, Mirio Togata had lost his quirk, and Tomura Shigaraki, the League of Villains, had managed to steal samples of the drug in question. Their losses contributed to high criticism of law enforcement and growing dissatisfaction with the hero establishment from the public at large. Though emotions ran high all around in the immediate aftermath, time marched quickly onward, and the chill winds of the coming winter did much to soothe the wounds of all those involved. Iri's quirk could rewind living things to previous states, but as she couldn't yet control the powerful ability, she was quarantined in a hospital for the time being. That said, there was little worry of another rampage, since the horn on her forehead that emitted the rewinding energy seemed to have shrunk since the big battle. She couldn't stay at the hospital forever, of course, so those in charge were in the process of deciding where she would end up. One proposal was of UA High itself, because of the presence of none other than Shota Aizawa, whose erasure quirk was for now the only known check against the potential outbursts of Iri's ability. Today, Aizawa was at the hospital for a visit. What is it? The standard hospital bed dwarfed the small girl, who looked at Aizawa questioningly while sipping juice through a straw. What kind of dance is Deku gonna do? A glint of anticipation shone in her eyes. Enthusiasm, even. Ever since Iri's variant quirk had manifested, her daily life had been nothing but pain. Though the 6-year-old's dark, brutal past still weighed on her, and would not soon be forgotten, Izuku Midoriya had suggested that she attended UA's upcoming school festival. Aizawa thought that introducing her to the school on the day of the bombastic festival might be too much, so he brought Iri for the visit just a few days earlier, and had witnessed her adjusting to life in the outside world, little by little. The sights and sounds of the older children working hard to prepare for the big event had already planted a seed of excitement in Iri's wounded heart, and their events, performances, and exhibits might be just the thing to help that seed sprout. You can look forward to finding out on the day of, said Aizawa. Iri made a face far too serious for someone her age, and, with a rapid series of small nods, said, "Okay, I'll look forward to it." It was half in agreement, half in wonderment about the very concept of having anything at all to look forward to. Though Aizawa had been taking a number of days off recently, he had gotten word on how hard his kids were working. He was still a bit concerned how the other classes would respond to Class A's bold plan, but he wasn't worried about the quality of the event itself. Whether working for others' sake, or their own, the effort his students were putting in would be sure to reach hearts and minds. A few days had passed since Aizawa's hospital visit. With UA High's dorm system firmly in place, the students' animated conversations and laughter filled the campus even on Sundays, and today was no exception. In fact, the grounds were even more active on this particular Sunday, since the kids had no time to lose in prepping for the impending festival. Weather this good made it the perfect day to roll up their sleeves and put in a full day's work. In one grassy area near the main school building, Class 1C of General Studies was busy putting together its own exhibit, a haunted house they called Labyrinth of Doom. "Shinso, hold this up while I nail it in." "Sure thing." Hitoshi Shinso put down the lumber he was carrying and approached his classmate, who was struggling to mount a grandfather clock against a wall. He held the clock in place, and each rap of the hammer against the nail made Shinso's muscular arms tingle. "The clock looks good here, right, guys?" asked the classmate with the hammer. The others seemed to approve, but in Shinso's opinion, the stately clock looked much too nice for what was supposed to be a decrepit mansion. "Since the clock's going to start crying like a creepy baby, shouldn't it look more aged and worn down?" he said. His classmates thought about it, nodded, and started in with their own suggestions. "Did we still have some of that paint lying around that makes wood look damaged?" "Nope, none here." "There should be a can back in the classroom, though." "Hey, how about some baby handprints on the floor in front of the clock with red paint? Spooky, right?" "Totally Creepsville." "And some handprints on the wall facing the clock, just to up the creepy factor." Nice thinking. That'll send those hero course kids crying to their mommies. Ooh, I've got it. Let's put some bloodstained diapers here and there, too. How is that scary, exactly? While his classmates laughed and discussed ideas, Shinso picked up the unused lumber and said, "I can grab that paint after I take this to the trash." A number of them thanked him, and he walked away in silence. Ever since he put in his transfer request, Shinso had started feeling pangs of guilt while hanging out with these familiar faces. When should he tell them? Would it be too late if he waited until his transfer was approved? Shinso was more aware than anyone that his brainwashing quirk wasn't suited to traditional hero work. But he decided to pursue his dream and apply to UA all the same. Unfortunately, the practical portion of the entrance exam, a battle against robots, hadn't been a stage where his talents could shine, and he had been rejected from the hero course. Shinso had anticipated this and submitted a separate application to general studies just in case, knowing that with good enough grades, an eventual transfer to the hero course was theoretically possible. His outstanding performance at the sports festival had put the transfer plan into motion. Still, nothing was guaranteed, and he already perceived an enormous gap between himself and the students of the hero course, who'd been training since the start of the school year. Until Shinso could receive the same training, it was up to him to work on his quirk on his own time. Aizawa must have felt an affinity for the boy, since he had agreed to help him in the meantime. Shinso understood the rare opportunity before him, and would put up a desperate fight, if that's what it took. But all the same, he was plagued by doubts and unease. Shinso stopped, gazed up at the blue sky, and sighed. A cool breeze shepherded the clouds overhead. Was there really a spot waiting for him in the hero course? Where would his next great leap land him? His doubts made him feel like one of those drifting clouds, and nothing scared Shinso more than being blown out into nothingness. It was this lack of confidence that had kept him from telling his current classmates about the possible transfer. Now distinctly aware of his faint-hearted turn, Shinso shook his head to dispel the dark thoughts before setting off to the classroom. "Those balloons shaped like our teachers, those positions look good to you?" "I think you spelled something wrong on the sign. The food stalls are sure to rack up the biggest profits. I hear 1A's putting together some kind of band. Ken Ranzaki's probably going to pull off her third win in a row at the beauty pageant. Sucks the teachers aren't doing anything special themselves this year. I was looking forward to that." As he walked across the campus, Shinso picked up conversations here and there, knowing that the energized atmosphere was only going to intensify as the festival approached. For any given high school in Japan, the ubiquitous school festival was a chance for students to let off some steam and learn a thing or two outside of the classroom. With that in mind, Shinso reflected on how this one might be the first and last with the members of Class C. Feeling dark thoughts encroaching again, he put on his best poker face and tried to focus on the simple act of walking, rather than embrace the angst. Why not concentrate on what he could and should do? The trash collection spot was behind the main building, but as Shinso rounded the corner, he found himself staring at an enormous dragon on the nearby patch of grass, one big enough to ride. Right, Class B is doing a play. The students of Class 1B were hard at work painting the dragon's head, and building set pieces resembling a castle, rocky crags, and so on. "Come on, Monoma, isn't this good enough?" said Yosetsu Awase. "It's as realistic as it's gonna get." "Yes, we've covered the realism angle. Now we're going for sheer intensity," explained Naito Monoma. Apparently Monoma wasn't quite satisfied with the already very impressive dragon prop. "Let him have his way," said Tetsu, slapping the exasperated Awase on the back. "Attention to detail ain't a bad thing." "I knew you were a man of taste, Tetsu," said Monoma, while adding intricate cross-hatching, nearly too detailed to be done with a paintbrush. "Ooh, that's looking great," said an impressed Setsuna Tokage, who was painting a crag nearby. Proud of his handiwork, and the positive reactions to it, Monoma threw back his head and laughed. "I dare say our dragon is nearly ready to devour Class A whole. They can have their silly band and dance club, since everyone knows that the theatrical production is the tried and truest road to success at a school festival. Yes, it will be Class B that claims the limelight this time." Shinso walked past Class B, wondering if modern medicine had come up with a name for whatever disturbing condition was clearly afflicting Monoma. If my transfer gets approved, I can end up as his classmate. Shinso figured that he was more likely to be placed in Class A, given Aizawa's involvement in his independent training. Class B was still a possibility. He wondered if he was getting ahead of himself, though. A bit farther along the path, he came across Mina Ishido, Ochaku Uraraka, Suyu Asui, and the floating clothes of the invisible Toru Hagakuri, as Class A's dance squad was in the middle of practice. Though Hijiro Kirishima, Minoru Muneta, Hanta Seto, Rikido Sato, Mezo Shoji, and Koju Koda sat off to the side, apparently taking a breather. "I'm gonna lodge a complaint with the PTA!" shouted a fuming Muneta. "Chill out, dude," said Kirishima, trying to calm his classmate. "I'm sure Sensei kept it secret for a reason. We're talking the all-important notice about the beauty pageant. That's like as important as finding out if school's gonna be closed due to weather. I swear, I'm gonna give Sensei a piece of my mind for this dereliction of duty." "Yeah, right," teased Sero. "One glare from him and you'll fall to pieces, more like." This earned a pouty scowl from Mineta. "Sensei wasn't messing around," said Sato. "He was all like, given how long you all took to decide on your event, I knew that informing you about the beauty pageant would only lead to more time wasting." Sato punctuated his impression of Aizawa with a wide-eyed glare. "You got that, Mineta?" said Seto, also imitating Aizawa's gravelly growl. "Knock it off, you trying to make me wet myself again?" protested Mineta. "Please don't have another accident, Mineta," said Shoji. "Har har, quit acting like it happens all the time, Shoji." As Mineta ranted, the big-boned Koda recalled Aizawa's tone and shuddered in fear. This conversation got Shinso's attention. While Aizawa was stern enough during training, Shinso still hadn't experienced a full-blown scolding himself. Strangely enough, he almost felt jealous that the kids of Class A had. "Stop sitting on your butt and get back to work, Mineta," said Mina, who just finished coordinating with the other girls. "Yeah, this is your chance to shine, after all," added Uraraka. At this, Mineta's frown was replaced by a sheepish smile. "How about you show me what I can expect from you, my lovely harem dancers? I gotta know what I'm working with first." "Sure, fine, watch closely now," said Mina. She began to dance, and the other girls followed her rhythm. The plan was to put Mineta in the middle, making him the star of the charming routine. The boys cheered in approval of the girls' moves, but the would-be star seemed dissatisfied. "Too tame! You're supposed to be my harem, so try acting like it," he said. "And how does a harem act exactly?" asked Asui flatly, with one finger on her lower lip. "You're supposed to be in love with me, so how about some wiggly, grinding action? Of course, you'll barely be wearing anything at all during the real thing, so we'll see some skin on skin, you know. Here, let me give you a taste of what I'm looking for." With ragged breaths and bloodshot eyes, Mineta lunged at Asui in hopes of giving his perverted demonstration. But she caught him with her tongue and slammed him to the ground. "Talk about looking a gift harem in the mouth," said Hagakuri, whose invisible expression was likely set to furious. Ashido followed up with a threat. "Pull that pervy crap again and we're cutting the harem number altogether. You got it?" "Sure, I'll be good. I promise," said a sneering Mineta. "Like we'd ever buy that," said Uraraka with a snort. Shinso was still observing, at a distance. He's gotta get expelled for sexual harassment one of these days, right? With that new concern occupying his head, Shinso finally dropped off the lumber at the trash and headed towards the classroom for the paint. The school building was usually closed on Sundays, but the doors were left unlocked for the duration of this festival prep period. Shinso heard voices coming from one of the classrooms he was passing, and upon peering through the door's window, he spotted a drum kit, a keyboard, and guitars, along with Katsugi Bakugo, Denki Kaminari, Fumikaga Tokiyami, Kyoka Jiro, and Momo Yajirozu. They must have been on break since Yajirozu was distributing tea from a thermos. "Phew, that hits the spot," said Kaminari between slow sips. Meanwhile, Bakugo drained his cup dry in seconds, without a hint of sentimental reflection. "Tea's tea, though this one's a little sweeter than yesterday's," I should have expected you'd have a distinguishing palate, Bakugo, said Yaoyorozu. Today's is a second flush of Darjeeling, while yesterday I brought a first flush. First, second, what's the difference? Asked Jiro. First flush refers to tea leaves picked during spring, while second means the harvesters waited until summer, said Yaoyorozu as she passed Jiro a cup of tea, poured from another thermos. The latter looked confused about why she was the only one getting a different drink, so the former clarified with a smile. Yours is milk tea, which should help protect your throat and singing voice. You mentioned some discomfort yesterday, yes? Oh, thanks. Yeah, this is great, said Jiro. Seeing Jiro's expression relax, Yaoyorozu finally sat down to enjoy her own cup of tea. Tokiyami was inspecting some power cords in one corner of the room, but before he could finish, Dark Shadow emerged from his body and shouted, Fumikage, give me something to do! As I explained yesterday, Dark Shadow, said Tokiyami, the stage will be lit up from all angles, just the sort of place you can't tolerate. But I'm the only one left out! I want to do something! Oh, why the heck not? We could use a third guitarist, said Kaminari, without a single thought. Jiro, on the other hand, wasn't so sure. Our whole dynamic would be unbalanced, though. Maybe it could play bass instead? That intricate fingering demands extensive practice. Dark Shadow couldn't possibly learn it in time, was Tokiyami's reasoned response. I want to play, pouted Dark Shadow. Everyone else gets to join the school festival. With his companion on the verge of tears, Tokiyami was nearing his wit's end. Shut up, snapped Bakugo. Wah. Whining like a baby because you want to play too? Why don't you bang on something then? That's about on your level. This gave Jiro an idea. Banging. Percussion, maybe. How about the tambourine? It's simple enough. And it could add a nice touch to our arrangement. Tambourine? Lemme, said Dark Shadow. In that case, just a moment, said Yaoyorozu, before producing a fully formed tambourine with her creation quirk. Dark Shadow snatched the instrument greedily and began jangling away. Tsk. Bakugo clucked his tongue venomously. Just don't throw off the damn beat. Aye. As Shinso finally walked away toward his own classroom, the joyous jangling and Bakugo's roars of, Shut up! Faded into the distance. Is it just me, or has Bakugo gotten tamer since the sports festival? Shinso picked up the paint he'd come for, and walked back down the corridor. The band had resumed practice by the time he passed the other classroom again. He heard them taking the piece from the top over and over. The sounds faded again, and Shinso got to thinking. Before he applied to UA High, he never could have imagined putting so much time and effort into anything besides studying on any given Sunday. Surely the training demanded by the hero course would occupy every free minute. He hadn't been too far off the mark. UA's classes were as intense as could be, and the hero course asked a lot of its students. But the school was also sure to offer a host of laid-back events for the student body's enjoyment, in the name of fostering that standard high school experience for all. Shinso had put UA up on top of a pedestal and overlooked this obvious fact. A fact he was being keenly reminded of through his observations that day. On his way back to the green, he heard another group of voices around the next corner. Alright, the clue for the next round is white. Aoyama's probably thinking, rice? Wrong. It is my skin that glistens like freshly fallen snow. Shinso held his breath at the sound of one familiar voice in particular, and peered around the corner at the source. Bingo. It was Izuku Midoriya. Glistening white skin, Aoyama? Only you could come up with that answer. Midoriya, if you truly thought my answer would be rice, you were sorely mistaken. Besides which, pain is my carbohydrate of choice, replied Yuga Aoyama. Next to him, Mashiro Ojiro gave an awkward smile. Midoriya hasn't been able to guess a single one of your answers yet, he said. Tenya Ida and Shoto Todoroki were also part of this circle, and this group, too, was apparently taking a break. Newlywed game? Here? Now? Shinso wanted to keep moving, but his feet wouldn't budge. Back during the sports festival, he'd used his quirk to manipulate Ojiro. It had seemed like his only path to victory at the time. So he didn't exactly regret his actions, but he'd be lying if he claimed he didn't feel guilty at all. Then there was Midoriya, the boy who defeated him, the one who'd broken the unbreakable hold of the brainwashing and proceeded to beat the struggling Shinso in a contest of strength. An opponent earnest and good-natured enough to drop his guard and respond, risking another round of brainwashing when, after their battle, Shinso vowed to become a hero. When he'd submitted his transfer request, Shinso had imagined himself one step closer to his dream. But the more he trained in the days since, the more anxious he'd grown about the reality looming before him. While the kids in the hero course ran on at top speed, here he was lagging behind. Shinso leaned against the wall and gripped the paint can even harder. "How about a more specific, personal topic?" suggested Ida. "For instance, our favorite heroes." Everyone besides Midoriya snorted and said, "Too easy." Just as Midoriya blurted out, "All Might!" "If the goal is to get Midoriya and Aoyama in sync, shouldn't they just rehearse?" said Todoroki, with all his usual candidness. The others nodded in agreement. "Be sure to spin my gorgeous self all about, so that my sparkles can fill the entire hall," said Aoyama. "Sure, I'll do my best." I thought Class A was just playing some music. Shinso was no longer sure what sort of spectacle they were planning. Beyond the wall that divided him from the group, Shinso saw Ida shoot up, inspired by Midoriya's enthusiasm. "I too have been working on my dance steps. Observe, everyone!" Choreographer Ashido had decided to make use of Ida's characteristic stiff joints and have him perform a solo robot, which he now demonstrated to the others, his awkward, clumsy movements with a spitting image of a mechanized automaton. "Wow, those are some, not too smooth moves, Ida. Good going," said Midoriya. "Thank you, but I still need to brush up on my routine before the main event," said Ida. "Hey, why don't you check out the support courses robots for reference?" offered Ojiro. "You're already kind of friends with Mai Hatsume from the sports festival, right?" "No, thank you. Unnecessary. I shall find the robot in me without that sort of external aid," shot back Ida. His first run-in with Hatsume at the sports festival had turned him into an unwitting, walking billboard for her inventions. Later, when he and the others had gone to her for costume upgrades, she had forced arm boosters on him, and had rocketed him straight into the ceiling. Unpleasant memories, to say the least. Unfazed, Ojiro gave a gentle smile and said, "It's funny how the two festivals couldn't be any more different. They call it a sports festival, but it's really just a battle showcase," mused Midoriya. This got Ida reminiscing. The obstacle course, the cavalry battle, and then the unorthodox tournament. Come to think of it, everyone here made it to the final 16, yes? The top 16 point scorers in the cavalry battle had earned spots in the final tournament. But that particular memory made Ojiro grimace. "Yeah, though I decided to drop out." "Oh right, because of Shinso," added Midoriya. Still eavesdropping, Shinso felt his heart leap into his throat at the sound of his own name. "Whereas, I decided to move on all the same," said Aoyama with a wink. While Midoriya seemed to search for the right words, Ojiro gave a frustrated laugh. "And then, even though I tried to warn you, Midoriya, you still let him get you right at the start of your match, with that brainwashing of his." Shinso scowled, failing to detect even the faintest note of resentment in Ojiro's voice. He found himself wishing that the tailed boy had hurled some abuse or cursed Shinso's name. Then he wouldn't have to feel quite so guilty. "Yeah, I couldn't help myself," said Midoriya, returning Ojiro's smile. "I guess I just panicked, since, well, the brainwashing was so powerful and intense. And you don't see mind control quirks too often, you know? Imagine being able to stop a villain in their tracks just like that. But it'd also be super useful for saving people. No matter who you are, it takes time to stop panicking and think clearly, especially when you're in danger, and you gotta act fast. So imagine how handy brainwashing would be for managing a distressed crowd, or guiding them to safety. Yeah, I think it's an amazing quirk." Hearing Midoriya divert into muttering analysis mode, Shinso's whole body clenched up. People had always said his quirk seemed best suited for a villain, but here was someone else seeing it in the same light he always had. All the comments and jokes about villainous mind control hadn't kept Shinso from admiring heroes, so he'd never stopped believing that his quirk could actually help people. Midoriya's words filled him with a queasy mix of frustration and joy, and he had to hold back his words trying to escape his own mouth, to dash around the corner to say thank you. Now would be to rest on laurels he hadn't earned yet. Shinso knew this, deep down. He knew where his next big step had to take him, and he knew that even that was just the starting point. Shinso forced a cocksure smile onto his own face and turned around silently, opting for a different roundabout route. He still had to get stronger before the next time they met. Beyond the wall, the Class A boys kept chatting about the sports festival. Midoriya versus Todoroki was a battle for the ages, though, said Ojiro. Yeah, I really gave it all I had, but still came up short, said Midoriya with a note of frustration in his voice. Hearing this, Todoroki paused for a moment before speaking. I might have technically won, but that's not how it felt. Next time, I'm winning for real. The others stared in mild shock at the declaration, but Todoroki's expression suggested that he might as well have said, "The sky is blue." So obvious was this truth to him. Midoriya realized that they weren't going to get more of an explanation, so he responded in turn. I wouldn't be so sure. The next victory is going to be mine, he said with his fists clenched. Joining the bandwagon, Ida pumped his own fists in the air, up and down. You two had better not count me out just yet. Seeing the trio nodding in solidarity, Ojiro started feeling left out. Hey, don't forget about the rest of us, okay? I'm pretty confident in a one-on-one fight. And I have been busy perfecting my new moves, added Aoyama. Prepare to be blinded by their brilliance. The five boys accepted the mutual gauntlet throwing, with bold grins on their faces, vowing to keep honing their skills before the next sports festival. If they were lucky, it would be on a day as beautiful as this one. Making progress. Oh, Aizawa-sensei. As Shinso took the long way back to his classmates and their patch of grass, he heard Aizawa call out to him. We're about halfway done, yeah, he said, realizing that the can of paint must have reminded Aizawa about Class C's haunted house. Good to hear, said Aizawa with a light nod. Keeping up with your training too, I hope. Festival organization and frequent hospital visits had been keeping Aizawa busy, so Shinso had been training on his own, each day after classes and festival prep. Yeah, I know that every second counts at this point. The curt response was imbued with Shinso's unshakable determination. Sensing this change, Aizawa opened his eyes a little wider than usual and said, I see, before turning to walk away. Before he could get very far, though, an excited group of students came down the path. Mew? Nope, try again, more cat-like, like a little demon. Meow? Now I want to hear that stray cat sound. Cute, yes, but also wild and untamed. Meow. Oh, hey there, Aizawa-sensei. The student leading the pack noticed Aizawa, and the rest of the group, wearing cat ear decorations, clad in literal cat suits and practicing their honest-to-goodness cat calls, stopped to greet the teacher as well. Good meowing, sensei. Right. Sure. Carry on. The cat impersonators moved along, and the dumbfounded Shinso asked, What on earth was that about? One of the second-year classes is doing a cat cafe where they're the cats, explained Aizawa. So they were honing their cat impressions. An interesting idea, Shinso thought. But going for realism like that only lent them a strange, discomforting energy. Cats are cute because they're cats, I say, muttered Shinso under his breath. As a fellow cat person, Aizawa nodded wordlessly. I wonder if little girls like cats too, said Aizawa to himself. Little girls? Fashion-wise, I mean. Aizawa walked away without further explanation. He's buying clothes for a little girl? Shinso remembered the paint, tucked away his unanswered questions, and hurried off towards his classmates. This was it. He'd finally decided to tell them about his transfer application. It wasn't that he'd suddenly grown confident or rid himself of doubts, but announcing one's goals to the world was a good way to cut off one's own escape routes. As Shinso approached his class, however, he noticed that they were on a break, chatting excitedly about something or other. We ought to do it right after the sports festival. Yep, Shinso will be none the wiser if we pretend we're just prepping for the rap party. And the wiser about what? They hadn't noticed him coming back, so Shinso instinctively snuck behind one of the walls of the haunted house. But man, when do you think he's going to tell us about that damn transfer request? It's not like we haven't known for a while now. I guess Shinso's just more thoughtful than he lets on. So they already knew. Shinso found himself blushing and feeling like an idiot for not realizing. That's why we're gonna throw him this awesome party! To really light a fire under him. He's the rising star of general studies, after all. The eavesdropping Shinso gulped and felt his body clenching up again. Don't worry, guys. The fire's gone and lit now. With this newfound conviction, he rehearsed his upcoming declaration in his mind. I'm getting into the hero course no matter what, so just watch me. These classmates of his had also shot for the stars and missed. But here they were, willing to put aside ego and lift him up to those heights. Shinso felt the weight of that implied responsibility, knowing full well how much it would motivate him. He glanced up at the sky, nothing but blue in every direction. But Shinso didn't waste a second wondering where those errant clouds had gone. He turned the corner and said, I'm back, guys. Shinso might be saying goodbye to them sooner rather than later, but the warmth he found wouldn't be easily left behind.